No.
Then why are you saying that particular jacket that I haven't seen the manufacturer of, but it exhibits the same kind of design features like with other jackets, then why are you saying that I should subscribe to this thinking process that, you know what, this should also be designed based on the fact that we see other jackets which are designed? Why am I making this extension and a generalization about this jacket? This jacket could just pop into existence just like that.
No, I feel like the burden of proof is on whether it's possible to pop into existence. Like there's proof that it can be manufactured. There's not proof of any other way of a jacket.
So, okay, now we're making some progress in terms of can things pop into existence from nothing, for example? No?
As far as I know, no.
Fine.
I have seen no proof,
so this universe then could not have popped into existence from nothing.
I feel like like you're really getting down to the core issue immediately, like between being atheist or agnostic or.
I'm just taking the same kind of reasoning that we are working now. So if you're going to use this reasoning that we can't accept anything popping into existence from nothing, we can extend that to the universe and say the universe could not.
I feel like we can't explain that with the knowledge we have now.
Okay, same about my jacket then. You don't have enough knowledge to actually determine that this didn't pop into existence from nothing.
Yeah, but I feel like that's, to me, that's insufficient proof to accept another explanation that kind of fills the gap of what we don't understand.
No. Do you know anything about this jacket? You don't even, have you met the manufacturer yourself? No. So it just maybe pop into existence from nothing, just like that.
I feel like I understand what you're saying, but to me,
what I'm doing is called reverse psychology, right? It's just
like
putting it back to you.
You're putting my
your
thoughts
arguments
in a different context.
I'm just giving you back your arguments back to you, basically. That's how atheists will normally argue. I'm getting it back to you in reverse, so that we understand the level of arguments when atheists brings, how consistent and how reasonable they are. So far, when I'm talking about this jacket, you would say like, how can a reasonable person believe that this thing came up in thin air? You will say that's not a reasonable position to take, and you'll have your reasons. You will say, look. This exhibits design, the way it's padded to give comfort, to give you warmth, the chain, that the mechanism of closure and opening and so on, the hoodie and the color, I can see like this is like a high-vis there. So all of that tells me the arms to fit human beings, not elephants, right? And the size, many things you can say, the way things are sewn together, exhibits what we call design feature. You would say such observation, you cannot then make an inference by having understood the design feature and say, no, this is an illusion of design, it just popped into existence. It's possible.
Okay. I think I'm trying to relate the jacket example to the broader discussion.
Yeah.
But I feel like I understand what you're saying in the sense that the things around us are designed in a certain way, they serve a purpose. How is that not by design? How is that not purposely made that way? Also, they didn't pop into existence, so there must be something larger than ourselves that
intelligent agency behind it, just like your jacket. Yeah, being consistent. I'm just trying to be consistent.
I fully accept that. Me being agnostic, I cannot. Within my reasoning, I cannot explain the existence of Earth, of our universe.
No, that's what I'm saying. An agnostic position should be open to such level of understanding and reasoning, and then we sway our reasoning to say, I can no longer be agnostic, it moves to theistic understanding, because that's how it seems to be making sense of. Because if I'm now going to be, I apologize if I'm going to use this word, stubborn, and say, no, I am not going to somehow shift my line of reasoning, even though it seems to be that way, then that's no longer a credible position of honest agnosticism. It's about someone, they want to be agnostic because of the repercussions, because of the consequences of believing in theism. That's a different issue altogether.
Yeah, I get that, but I still, I could understand how from a theistic perspective, being agnostic, you just ignore that part. You don't explain it, you just don't concern yourself with it. You have no explanation. And if you're religious, there's an explanation. There's a God. He created it. That's how it started. And the
Look,
rest still
agnosticism is healthy in various time points. I'm not saying we can we always be like remain not agnostic. Sometimes we have to suspend our judgment and say, I'm not convinced either way, many things. So there is a healthy balance that we have to take and say, look, but when we observe the reality around us and we think about our own life, think of our own existence, whether there's a purpose behind it or not, whether we're going to die and that's the end of it, we have to really take it, one step further in terms of seriousness and say, look, is it still appropriate for me to remain agnostic in that sense, or should I then make my judgment call? Like this jacket, even though there's a possibility it may have popped into existence, but you will say, nah, this is manufactured, even though I haven't seen the manufacturer. You will make that judgment call. You will do. I will do that too. When it comes to this level of skepticism, sometimes we'll suspend our skepticism like this and say, I'm happy and I'm comfortable with accepting this is what the reality is. Likewise, when it comes to reality, if all the evidence, if all the observation demonstrates and leads towards a designer, an intelligent behind it, a creator, an originator, it does. Because all of these things, information cannot be assembled without an intelligence agency. Just simply, not really conceptually rationally acceptable. It is not this belief. People say, if you have a monkey typing in a typewriter for billions of years, they would produce the best Shakespeare's literature. Or if you have, the letters of the English alphabet, and you just, what's this called? Like, big warehouse with so many letters, and then you blow up air and whatever. And
batteries on this camera, they're blinking, it means they're about to die. But when they
that's fine. And then what happens is an explosion happens, and you go into that factory and you open up, and there's a book produced with such a beautiful, eloquent poem in there, talking about life and the purpose of life and meaning, talking about describing you. You know what? We met on Sunday on Speaker's Corner. By the way, this is my phone number. You would say this kind of precise information of this nature. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to suspend my agnosticism and say this is not through these accidents or without an intelligence agency behind it. There's some intelligence agency did something, besides me not knowing it. Imagine a biography of you. When we were born, which hospital, how much you weighed, what your name, what your mother weighed, and the things that you had in the first week and second week, the things that were bought for you, all of your biography until now.
Yeah.
Would you ever even consider that this is possible? It just happened by accidents and randomness? I would not, and I think you would not too, because this is not something that we can really buy as a matter of coincidence.
I can. I feel maybe, yeah.
You can? You can? You can?
To me it does.
Really?
To me it does.
So if you see a letter on a piece of paper telling you, okay, oh, by the way, that's your phone number, is that correct? By the way, can you call me on this number tomorrow at 10:30? Loves and kisses, and it's a female name that you met only yesterday. Would you ever consider this just happened by chance? It just happened.
If I
not by the girl and the lady that wrote it, but it just, pen came from nowhere, or the ink, and a paper was there, and it started writing by itself.
Or would you refer
Or it
I would
just
say
formed.
it's random, maybe more coincidence. I think coincidence exists. I think randomness
You would
exists in the
expect
sense that maybe the pen fell out of her pocket on the way there. I would never have had the number. So it's random.
Have you ever cooked? Have you ever cooked yourself?
I have.
Right. Imagine going into your kitchen and staying there and having that belief. You know what? All of your food, they will assemble by themselves. They will be washed. They will be cut to its pieces. They will put in the pan, and you will have your beautiful dish that you're hungry to eat. It just happens, right? It will happen. Would you ever sit there in your kitchen and think this will happen? Ever?
If I didn't take the action to go cook, no.
So you need the intent.
Why would you say, or in your heart, in your mind, why would you have that kind of approach saying this will never happen? Because it requires intelligent agency. It requires someone or something to assemble together in that particular proportion to make that dish. I don't know, lasagna, bolognese, whatever you eat, for example, yeah? Biryani, right? It will never happen. That's the faith that you have internalized. I am saying be consistent with this approach and examine the universe, examine the originator of this universe, and if you are consistent enough, you will then say there definitely is an originator, just is all self-evident throughout.
I wanted to ask you, are you rejecting a creator because you've been brought up like this, or did you rationally thought yourself? Is it a decision you made yourself?
Yeah, it's a decision I made myself. My mother is actually Christian. But personally, I do believe there's more than what we can what's tangible to us, what we can explain. But I feel like all religions I've heard or read about so far, maybe it's my skepticism, maybe that's a fault of mine.
Have I quoted any verse from my scripture yet?
No.
Right. So this is the Islamic approach. I'm just showing you, of course.
Because to me, for example, Christianity, it just seems so convenient that so much of the rules that there are in the Bible are convenient for the people that have the power. Like it keeps them in power. Like it makes.
Are you against rules?
It makes no. I think rules are great.
So if a rule comes from God, would you have a problem?
If the only reason is that God wants it, I just feel like.
If a rule came from God for our own benefit, would you, in principle, have any problems with that?
No, but I feel like it's impossible to have those rules because there's no way of proving that it came from God.
No, that's a secondary issue to talk about rules. For example, there is laws of physics in our universe. Are we going to just simply say that's it and live our life? We need to explain how do we have the laws of physics in our universe? Yeah. Because the laws don't pop into existence just like that. Laws are such precise mechanisms or forces.
I get that. I am not against rules. I'm not saying rules shouldn't exist or that they're nonsense. But I feel like the fact that there are outdated parts in scriptures, they're like, with the knowledge we have now, that was incorrect. But this other stuff is still correct.
So in principle, you're saying is, I mean, this is a different discussion. In principle, you're saying is there are certain things you find not so palatable because of you think they're outdated, they're not really relevant today, or some.
Or that we actually
so maybe that is as the brother was trying to, he's like a doctor trying to examine the root cause of your stance of agnosticism. Could it be because of this, inconvenience that you find that this is not relevant for me, appropriate for me? I cannot be comfortable with that. That could be a reason why you would not accept a belief system, an organized belief, or organized religion. In fact, many people.
I would even go even further than that, Mansur, because I think your acceptancism is solely based on your lack of ignorance of Islam. So you only know Christianity or perhaps other faith, and that puts you into a lot of skepticism because of their shortcomings, because of their lack of evidence or the contradictory and so on. So therefore, you've gone into the root of skepticism. I would say that's my observation of you. Yeah. So have you heard anything about Islam?
Not as much as Christianity.
That's the.
But
let's discuss.
This is where we are fortunate. I'm not using the word fortunate as in luck, but this is we were, blessed or quite,
But to me,
the reason I'm using the word fortunate or blessed or someone we have this thing with us is Islam has the evidences that can be required to satisfy people's intellect and their mind, their soul. So when we ask people to accept Islam, we're not going to ask you to blindly accept it. We are going to ask you to use your reason, your faculty of intellect, use your heart to guide you, intellect to drive you and so on, or the other way around, the heart to drive you, intellect to assess and so on, to arrive at the conclusion that Islam is true or not. And you'll find that if you approach with this particular way in ascertaining and exploring and determining Islam is true or not, you will find the answer.
Because I like the way you're framing it, because to me, I think you're right. My experience with faith has been there's a set of rules and you have to adhere by them, and if you don't, you do not reach absolution or you don't go to heaven. And to me, I feel like how can it enrich your life if it's restricted?
On Christianity, more specifically.
Yeah, but also, like, to me, as someone who doesn't know much about Islam, fair. But what I see is that it can be quite restrictive. You can't do a lot of things.
So let's give some examples. Let's give some examples to understand how, for example, Islam says, do not gamble, okay, and do not take intoxicants like wine. But it tells you that people ask you about these things. Tell them, say, in them there are some benefit and there are harm, and the harm outweighs the benefit. So what God tells us, the things that people do about how they gamble and how they have all this consumption of wine for their social gathering and there's some pleasure here and there. There are some benefits, but there is actually harm which outweighs the benefit.
I can see that.
So in Islam, your heart will be tranquil to feel that, you know what, I will take the best solution, best approach in life in which this is the best for me, the best which is comfortable.
But I think I would not argue with that. Like if it comes to gambling or drinking, I could get behind that.
So this
like,
is where
in total it doesn't outweigh the benefits.
So if
but
now,
then,
what's your name for? I've forgotten. Bram. If now you realize there are certain do's and don'ts, and each of the do's and don'ts are actually beneficial for us, ultimately, then you would understand in principle.
Some of them you can make that argument, and for others, I just will never agree.
Yeah, now when you say for others, but what if there is a reason behind it? Because if we see certain set of examples, and we see that there is a rational behind it, reason behind it, there is a reason why this is prohibited, and there is a reason why this is obligatory, then we can extend that to say, okay, in that case, it's possible that for other things that which are not explicitly mentioned, there is a reason behind its prohibition or its obligation.
Yeah. It's a possibility. But I feel like it's still restrictive to,
but this is what Islam,
accept that in like universally.
But Islam provides this so that our hearts can be content, though. It doesn't simply say don't
I understand that it's not baseless. Like just do this and there's no explanation, no rationale, no way to justify it.
Like
I just feel like to focus on gender equality. To me, it's proven that like the minds of both genders are equal.
What do you mean by equal?
It's not like men
we are not wired the same.
No,
we are not wired the same in our brains. So how can you talk about equality? Men and women are not wired, configured in the brains the same. That is the fact of science. So we cannot say equality. We will say each one have different roles. But when it comes to legality, legal aspects, we should have the same kind of services and so on and so forth, rights and so on. That's what we're asking for, legal rights. But it may be that our roles in our biology is different. I mean, you're not designed to produce babies, are you? So I'm not going to falter you. I'm not going to falter you if you find that you're not that as compassionate as a mother.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. You could make an argument for that women, like there's plenty of there's reasons that women should be like more obedient or should focus on childcare or should not work or should not address their husband without being spoken to. All kinds of things.
No. There could be again, you're bringing some, I think, Christian baggage to understand. Because in Christianity, women should obey their husbands like they obey God. That's how it talks in the scripture. But not in Islam. Not in Islam.
No, but they're not equal. They're not equal, far from it.
When you say equality, there is no such thing as equality. This is a false notion.
Yeah, but they don't have the same opportunities.
Okay, they should be given opportunities. Let me give you an example about what we talk about equality and equity. If you want to see a football match, right? You, as tall as, how tall are you? Nearly 6 foot.
If I stand up, I'm 6'3".
6'3". This is my approximation.
I just don't stand
now,
up straight.
imagine now there's a child who is only this height. Right? And there's a wall there, and you have to see the game above the wall. So, guess what? You just watch there, stand there and watch the movie, and this child is standing there watching the movie. He can't watch the movie, there's a wall behind him. Now, so what someone brings is, he brings nothing. Or says, you know what, to be equal, to see the game, I need to provide something else. A stool, perhaps, or two, so that he can stand on it and he can then become as tall as you are and watch it. even though you were not given that provision. You see, an extra provision. Yeah. It's like giving extra money, extra equipment, and so on, but which you didn't have. Where is the equality? No equality. No equality. No equality. In fact, there's some kind of favoritism because you're now giving him extra things that, but you will say, no, we don't need that anyway because I didn't need it. Yeah. So this is a concept called equity in which you're being fair to each one. In Islam, we provide men and women in this way the things that they need to live their life. Yeah, you don't need to provide men the same thing that women need or vice versa.
So you
as abstract as you
give me an example.
In a nutshell, Islam provides you the necessity things that you need, the equity, the equity. Is that, yeah.
We should be equitable.
But you can't
in our treatments.
Is it true that you can't divorce once you get married?
She can get divorced. That's Christianity where you cannot get divorced unless you commit adultery.
You're bringing a lot of Christian back.
I'm asking. I'm not telling.
No, it's fine.
But from my perspective,
I'm telling you, you're gonna love Islam, bro. When you research,
maybe I am.
You're really.
I'm open to it, but from what I've seen, it can be so restrictive. And it can be like you can make an argument that
it's restrictive for both men and women when it comes to restrictions. Men cannot, for example, go and fornicate and commit adultery. So cannot the women. Both are restricted. Men cannot eat pork. So are women cannot eat pork. Both restricted.
Yeah, okay, but is it true then that if the man leaves, the woman can't ask him where he's going?
No. If the woman is suspicious about something, she should ask and say, "Where are you going?" I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think a bit of a culture is mixed here, and a bit of a baggage from a previous belief system is possible.
Like my sister used to have a really good friend, and her family was Islamic, so like that's my experience, like first-hand experience I've had with it, which is not that much, which is second-hand experience as well. But Islam as well as Christianity as well as other religions, and maybe I'm not educated well enough on Islam. Maybe the things I think I know aren't actually true. But from my perspective, it seems quite restricted. Like you're forced to cover your hair.
Let's take one example by example. Forced to cover hair. So if women are covered hair because there's a reason of covering, because that's part of her beauty that would distract others in public, then you will say this is a measure taken to protect her. Protect her from being molested, protect her from being abused, protect her from being, taking, what's this word, advantage of. Because that's part of her beauty. Yeah. How much money, for example, men in general spend on their hair compared to how much money women would spend on their hair? Comparatively, they beautify their hair with so many things and so on and so forth. Because it's a part of her beauty which can distract human beings, other male, in public. So when it comes to in a public domain, interaction in public, Islam has certain regulations of how interact with each other, how you dress with each other, so that we don't have this kind of obstacles in front in the way that we're interacting to do our job or our businesses.
Yeah, but I feel like that's my worldview is that it's just that each person should be free to be themselves as much as possible. And obviously there should be restrictions, like you can't harm other people, can't take away other people's freedom. I support that. But I think like assuming that other people will be distracted if you show your hair and then forbidding all women to show their hair once they've started wearing, covering it.
Once women understand this is a command from God for her own good, she doesn't do that because her husband says so. She's just that because it's a command of God.
Once she understands, but say she doesn't understand, and she's still Islamic, and she's like, I just don't agree with it.
Of course, she may be sinful for not doing that, but doesn't take Islam away from it. Yeah. One needs to understand the rules and regulations why they are following. For example, if God commands us to abstain from pork, one may not know the reason behind it. One may then.
I agree, and I think that's great if you can choose.
But if you know that God, the Creator, is all knowledgeable, all wise, and knows what is best for you, and is legislated accordingly.
Yeah, but that's the step ahead. that's not certain for me.
That has to be necessarily the case. If there is a creator, the creator will be perfect, free from all deficiencies and limitations.
Yeah, but I feel like
or imperfections.
Getting from there to these are the regulations they came from God.
Do you agree in principle, Brom? Again, if there's a creator, that creator by necessity will be perfect, free from all imperfections. That means any legislation the creator gives us from his divine wisdom is best. He's not going to say, oh, let me do like trial and error, like what they did in communism.
I agree.
Like,
I just think things can get lost in translation, is what I'm saying.
But
like this legislation might be outdated or translating might have been wrong.
But this is where we'll disagree. If a creator is all knowledgeable, he's not going to give you...
prevent mistakes from happening.
He's not going to give you outdated legislation which is not beneficial.
To me, that's just... a bit of a...
Or he could have given you in the past legislations or restrictions or allowances on which are only acceptable or relevant for them. Maybe he did not intend to make it for universal for all times. But that's where the distinction is. Islam was made as a universal religion for all time in all places, compared to the very localized nature of religion of Christ or of Moses, and so on and so forth.
I'll accept that. That was one of my main criticisms of religion. That there's just things you can point at, like nobody thinks this anymore. Like this is outdated. Nobody believes this. Nobody adheres to this rule anymore. But they still say all the other ones are absolute. And to me, that makes it very hard for me to believe that the other ones are still.
But you will still accept that just because it's old, it doesn't mean it may not be relevant. You accept that, right? Yeah. Democracy, how old is democracy?
True.
Very, very, very old. The Greeks, the ancient Greeks and what they believed in, we're talking about thousands of years. And yet people are adopting throughout the world. Islamic system of governance is not democracy. It's its own system, which is better than democracy, which is better than what we call dictatorship, better than socialism, capitalism, all of that. It is a system in which justice is implemented properly in the land, individually and collectively. I mean, this is where you will love when you study the Sharia, the reasons why there are rules and regulations in a societal level and individual level. If you study that, why is so? Because Islam doesn't only cater for an individual. It's not an individualistic spiritualist religion and that's it. It caters for individual and the society so that the society can flourish and develop and progress. Exactly what happened as Islam was implemented in its initial stages. They became the beacon of civilization. They became the forefront of knowledge for the whole world. People from all over the world, they came to the Islamic Spain, for example, in Cordoba, to learn about science and technology and society and sociology, architecture, engineering, all of that. Why? Because Islam being implemented, it somehow made people to excel not into social interactions in society and social laws and political sphere, but in economics, in science, in you call it. They were naming the stars. That's the level of technology, the advantage they were. While the Queen of England didn't have a bath for a month, they had underground sewage system, overground lighting system. That is the level of the technological advancement because of Islam and its role Islam played. So Islam has to be looked at differently from other religions.
And this is what we're calling you toward, Brown. We're calling you to revert back to your original state, contributing everyone is born with their natural inclination to believe in God. So when someone converts, we don't say you converted, we say we reverted. So we're asking you to reconnect with your Creator. What do you think of that?
I think it's a much better way of looking at it than converting people and going out of your way to force certain rules on other people. I like this approach. Like think of these things for yourself and then decide. I think that's always the way it should be. But I still.
Do you know Islam means submission by own willingly? When we say Islam is a belief or a state of affairs where there is a submission and surrendering. So when someone does that, it's a Muslim, right? A Muslim is someone who surrenders and submits to the will of the Creator by force or by willingly? Willingly. Just exactly as you said. Someone has to willingly say, now I surrender and submit to God. Yeah. So it's a matter of where a person like yourself will say, nothing is worthy of worship. that's not God, this is not God, this is not divine, that's not worthy of worship, and eventually coming to the realization that there is someone who is worthy of our worship, our praise, our gratitude, and that's the one who's the originator of all things. That is the process of surrendering to Islam, which is called the Shahada, that you testify. By that process of elimination and rejection and shunning and disregarding all of that, an affirming what is true, what is the only one true God, and submitting to that. So it is not something we are calling to something which is alien. It is something that your thought process are in line with. You know that's how the process should be. You know your heart and your mind are already tuned with it.
Even so, like, say I do my research, I read more about it, I'm like, actually none of the reasons I had to be agnostic apply to this. And it still fits within my worldview, the values I think are important. Then I still feel like I could stay agnostic without missing anything in my life from that point.
Missing the truth.
I mean,
truth is a big factor in life.
I don't feel like I am in search of some truth.
Are you saying you will be still content without knowing the truth? Imagine there is someone, I'm not going to personalize for you, imagine there's someone who doesn't know whose father or mother is. Do you think they will really have this peace and contentment and tranquility in the heart until they find out? This father or
think
parents?
There are many people that are completely... Okay
once they find out this is my parents and so on...
No, even if they don't know.
Change. No, truth is something that gives you the contentment in the heart. Once you realize, for example, yes,
yeah, but I know I'm creative. Different for everyone. Like there are people that will be so anxious their whole life. Like I wish I knew.
No,
I wish I knew
I'm
the truth.
saying your agnosticism is not going to give you the amount of tranquility and contentment in your heart like the certainty would. Certainty and agnosticism would not provide the same level of tranquility in the heart.
Don't you want to know what will happen to you after you die? How you got in this world? Where will you go?
I think it would be nice to feel like I'm sure.
Islam gives you the sure answers.
Yeah, but to me, like the way I'm wired, I don't feel like I could ever be sure. I would always wonder. Like I think that's wonderful.
Have you left for everything that you do 100% agnosticism, or have you made this judgment call? For example, you're going to go now and take some transport?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you've made a judgment call that transport is going to take you there wherever you're going. You're not saying I'm agnostic whether it's going to take me there or not. You've made in your everyday life some decisions and you're not agnostic to those decisions. You've made them. Yeah. You're no longer agnostic to those decisions. So when you make decisions about your life and the purpose of your life and your reality, your existence, about God and the connections, don't remain agnostic. There's no point remaining agnostic because you are already continuously and constantly making decisions. That's another decision to make and you're not going to lose anything. In fact, your level of happiness, contentment will increase because you know what is certain. We're not taking you something away from you. We are giving you more.
Can be completely content with uncertainty in their life.
They cannot be. They cannot be.
I think they can.
Bring someone. Bring someone and see how content they are and certain they are. To give you a very harsh example, someone being the doctor, and the doctor says, you know what, you might have cancer or not. Let me just check. And it's leave them there hanging. Do you think they'll have contentment in their heart, saying, I'm okay?
There are plenty of examples where people are never going to be content with uncertainty. I also think there's going to be examples where things are uncertain.
When it comes to certainty, what you're doing is you're simply saying, I'm no longer going to be depressed because I know this is the reality. Like, for example, you're not the King of England, are you? Once you realize you're not the King of England, there's no point depressing yourself like, I'm not the King of England anymore, because you know that the fact that you are not the King of England.
Yeah, but
there's no point.
Up until this point, I had never wondered whether I was the King of England. So is the knowledge that I'm not adding anything to my life?
But when it comes to somebody says, if somebody says you couldn't be King of England, and wow, maybe imagine being the King of England means all this inheritance, maybe, I don't know, money, fame, whatever, all these things, and you start thinking you wouldn't have in your heart the tranquility, because it's possible. If you are possibly, there's a chance that you're the King of England, you're losing all of that. You'll be thinking, because human nature is such that you would want to find out the truth and say, okay, fine, you know what? There's so many things that wait for me. You know, they simply say, I don't care.
And I feel like that's not a universal truth. I agree in many cases.
I didn't say it's an universal truth. I am saying,
but that uncertainty is something that
what
once
the Quran,
it's introduced into your life,
I am saying what the Quran says about contentment, about heart. It says, in the remembrance of God, the heart finds real contentment.